Hi girls, today I would like to talk about the sewing machines. The really common questions that I receive is, what kind of sewing machine should I buy if I am a beginner? And the common answer, the common opinion is, get the cheapest one. My opinion is completely controversial. I always suggest to buy a good sturdy sewing machine for beginners. Stay with me and you will know why I think this way just in a minute. When I teach my sewing classes, private or group, especially when I teach my kids sewing classes, I really often to see the situation when parents and grandparents, when they drop in all the kids at the beginning of the sewing class, they bring a sewing machine, right? And I usually see two different options. The first options is a really old sewing machines. Usually they find it in their garage. So this machine usually sit in the garage for a long time. And this machine usually hasn't been even served, hasn't been oiled and checked on the stitches. And this is not a good options. And the second options is cheap domestic sewing machine. Sometimes I can even see the toy sewing machines. So the cheapest sewing machines they usually get at Walmart, online. Sometimes they buy it on eBay, and these options is not good either. Why this option is not good for the beginner? Let me explain you. So the old sewing machine is good, but not good enough for the beginners. First of all, because sometimes it's really hard to run. It's not that smooth, and for beginners, it's quite challenging to find the pace when you push the pedal and to manage the layers at the same time. So that's probably why some parents stick to the cheapest domestic sewing machines. Well, I do have two machines right there. My old machine, which is single feather rate, and my, well, it's not the cheapest sewing machine. This is my Elna. Both of these machines are not the cheapest. Zinger Feather Rate is vintage sewing machine. It's a really great baby. It runs so perfectly. I love it to the bit, and it's just great sewing machine. So it's not that kind of machine that I'm talking about right now. This is not the old cheap machines, right? It's a good sewing machine, despite of the fact that it's old. This machine is domestic sewing machine, which is a home sewing machine, but it's not the cheapest one. This is Elna, and let me see, it's Experience 540, if you wonder what kind of brand I have. So I'm talking about the cheapest version. So the cheapest version, the cheapest domestic machine, usually those machines have a plastic parts, and those parts are rubbing to each other. So over the time, you can see the gap between those parts, which is not good. And this fact really affects the quality of the sewing. With the cheapest version, the cheapest sewing machine, you will not be able to maintain the straight stitches, and most likely you will see kind of like a zigzag stitches. No matter what you're doing with this machine, trust me, I'm speaking from my experience. I try to help my poor students who have, these kind of machines, and it's impossible. It is impossible to make all adjustments and to achieve the straight stitch because of those plastic parts. Plus, when we sewing, we need to go through the layers, 2 layers, 3 layers, even 5 layers. And if you have a cheapest sewing machine, the presser foot doesn't press the fabric down, so you will not be able to guide the fabric under the presser foot. So plus in most cases those machines are shifting the layers. So just imagine you are a beginner, you came for the class, this is your first class, you are so excited, and you have the cheapest machine. So instead of learning how to sew, you have to fight your machine. You have to fight your the tension dialing all this mechanism to adjust the tension so you get it right. You have to manage the thickness, because you need to either pull the fabric or to stretch the fabric, not just guide the fabric, which is supposed to do when you sew it. So plus those shiftings, well, it is so much points that you need to remember, that you need to manage when you're learning. So my opinion is, try to find the balance between your budget and the sewing machine features. Try to find that balance. Yes, we do need to stick to the budget. If you find a good model that you kind of get a feeling that it's a good model, okay, go to the sewing machine store, the store that sells sewing machines. Go and check those machines in reality. Grab some fabric with you. If you're planning to sew cotton, okay, bring the cotton with you and try this machine. Put it under the presser foot, push the pedal and see how it works. Does it go smooth? Does the stitches are straight? And it doesn't matter how many decorative stitches you have. It could be 10 decorative stitches or 250. If you can afford the machine with 250 decorative stitches, perfect. Go buy this machine. But the main concept, the main features that you need to look for when you buy your first machine is straight stitch. Maintain, like, you need to be able to manage the fabric under when you're sewing, and you need to see that it's not being shifted under the presser foot. You need to go through the layers. So if you're planning to sew a silk fabric, bring those silk scraps with you. Try it. If you're planning to sew a knit or stretchable fabric, bring it with you as well. Sometimes when I teach, once again, it happens a lot when I teach kids sewing classes, parents think that knit fabric is the easiest fabric in the world. It's forgivable, it's stretchable, it's soft. Let me tell you, it is not. It is not the easiest fabric at all. It's just the opposite. It's a hard fabric for the beginner. And if your sewing machine doesn't stitch the stretchable fabric, you won't be able to finish the project. You won't be able to even start your sewing project. So I hope my tips is helpful. Once again, try to find a good balance. Do not go to the opposite sides if you are a beginner. Do not buy the cheapest. Do not buy, oh my God, never buy a toy sewing machine. I've seen that. Toy sewing machine is a toy. It's not for sewing. Do not buy a very expensive sewing machine either. Try to stick with something in between. Okay. So if you have any comments and if you have any questions, okay, post it there. I will be more than happy to answer them. And I wish you to have a happy shopping. I wish you to buy a good sewing machine, the one that you like, because the good sewing machine really affects the way you sew. And if you buy a good sewing machine, you will make many projects that you will be proud of. Meanwhile, stay positive, stay well, and I'll see you soon.